r/us credit. People who've worked for scam call centers, did you know? And if you didn't state, why? I worked for a call center for about a month that bugged people to donate to charities with very similar names to actual charities, but less than 1% of the pledge would actually go towards the charity. When I found this out, I felt anxious about it and left, basically ghosting on it. No manager or employee of any kind even so much as called once. When I missed my next shift, I just stopped showing up and then never heard from anyone again. A few weeks later, I got a call to my landline that I don't give out, asking if I wanted to come work for the exact same company. In my head I was like, do you guys even remember that I literally did work there and then just stopped showing up? Oh, okay then. Definitely how a legitimate and not shady corporation would act. A long time ago, like in the early 1980s, I got a job at a call center. I was about 21 at the time. There were 5 or 6 of us who started the same day. The deal was we were selling discount photocopy paper and toner. Back in the day, toner powder was poured into a reservoir by the user. The call center manager gave us several scripts, but encouraged us to ad-lib once we got the hang of it. We were to call businesses from a list they had generated. A typical narrative would say that due to some accident, duplicate order, trucking accident, bankruptcy, etc., we had tons of surplus toner or paper. Whenever we first mentioned toner, we were told to say, you know, that black messy stuff you put in your copier, as kind of a folksy hook, and were to refer to Xerox, HP and Canon as the big 3. At this point, we were told and believed that the supplier bought bulk supplies from real accidents, bankruptcies and overstocked items. So basically the scripted narratives were mostly true. In truth, we were just an order placer for bulk wholesalers of supplies. There were no accidents, mistakes, or bankruptcies involved, but apparently these lies helped people believe they were getting a deal. The first day, I didn't do any live calls, just training, role-playing and practice with a sales trainer and instruction on how to process orders and record calls. Since the pay was 100% commission, this was unpaid work. The second day, only 2 of the new hires showed up. It started with a sales huddle, a rah-rah affair where we celebrated the previous day's numbers and top performers, and were given the key messages for the day/week, and told who was pushing paper vs toner. I was put on the toner team. I spent the morning shadowing an experienced salesperson who made several sales each hour, but again, unpaid work for me. Then was given a headset, a list and an order book after lunch. I made my first sale on about the 3rd call. Huge cheer. I was a star for 30 seconds, but then nothing the rest of the day. So basically I made about $10. After work I saw a fellow salesman waiting for a bus, so I offered him a ride to get the scoop on the company because I was having some doubts. He basically said he had just quit and the whole business was a scam. The lists given to the callers were sorted. The top salespeople got pre-qualified leads. The rest got basically random businesses. The one sale I got that day was a plant. Everyone gets 1 plant on their first day. For every 100 or so calls, you get about 20 that actually listen to your narrative and maybe 1 that places a small order, and about 2/3 of the orders are cancelled almost immediately, so there is no commission. For many of the cancelled orders, their phone number got put on the pre-qualified lists for the top salesmen the next month. He also told me the whole overstock, trucking accident, bankruptcy thing was a big lie. We were just placing orders for a bulk supplier. The prices were cheap because the licensed suppliers had much bigger markups, but that message didn't sell as well. We also had a cheaper, inferior product that would often void the warranty of the manufacturers. 3rd day I didn't show up. Yeah, I did this for about 2 days in college, mostly because my parents heard it was an opportunity and basically threatened to pull me out of school if I didn't do it. They tried to push it as us helping to build the school community, how to be a real go-getter, etc. They even gave us conversation starters custom tailored to each contact, based on their past majors, minors, extracurricular activities and the like. This is before I knew the drill on MLMs, but in retrospect it was almost exactly like an MLM spiel. My last day, I made a call to an alumnus who graduated only a couple of years before, so my guess would be right around the 2008 recession, and launched into the script. The guy was basically like, hey, I'm not trying to be a dick, because I know you're just a broke college student trying to make ends meet, but here's all the reasons why this is bullcrap, that you will totally understand once you graduate. You're still strapped, and they start asking you for money. Then he asked me how much my tuition was, stopped me before I could answer, and said big enough you shouldn't have to give them more, right? I wish you the best. And hung up. I sat there for like a few minutes dumbfounded, because I was a freshman and none of that dawned on me, and I had to process exactly what I was doing. Just as quickly the overseer was on me like, hey, those calls don't make themselves. Let's keep building that community. In a fake friendly voice. I excused myself saying I wasn't feeling well and I ditched. Straight up ditched and never went back. The whole thing just felt wrong. I told my parents they had hired too many kids and I got laid off. They seemed to buy that. Not too long after I graduated I started getting the calls. Initially I was always just like not interested, sorry, or can't give right now, sorry. But then it got to the point I was getting calls every month. Finally, this one day I'm in kind of a bad way generally speaking, and I get a call from a young guy. He starts the script, and I'm just done. So I said essentially the same thing as that guy did way back when. Well, turns out this guy was one of those real go-getters and I just got a lot of sorry you feel that way. End result. I got kicked out of the alumni association for my school. Whoops. Worked a call center in college. Lasted all of 2 hours. We were collecting for some state trooper support fund or something, and there was a manager circulating on the floor with his own manager's headset where he could come plug in and listen in on your calls. Dude was a tool. Total Colin Farrell's character from Horrible Bosses type. You know that guy's. Dark purple dress shirt with skinny black tie, chain wallet, bad goatee, starting to lose his hair at 25, drives a Sentra with an expensive stereo in it, and smells like clove cigarettes. That guy. Cut into a call where this elderly lady went from sorry, I can't contribute anything this year to because I'm having surgery and blah blah, and Todd or Chat, or whatever his name was is all bro. You just need to cut people like that off and get to the next call. Fuck him. I just realized that was not what I wanted to spend my time doing. When I was about 19 I worked for a call center for 3 days. They were scamming everyone including the employees. First, shifts were only 3 hours long, and you would be scheduled for 2 of those back to back. That is 9 to 12 and 12:30 to 3:30. This is because, if you are scheduled for longer than that you are 1. Legally entitled to break time 2. If you are scheduled for longer than 3 hours and get cut you have to be paid a minimum of 3 hours. The company would regularly cut you. If you weren't bringing in enough money, you were then expected to return for your next shift. I'm sure they screwed people's paychecks somehow, but I walked out in day 3 and abandoned my paycheck. I walked out because that was the day I learned where the money went. See, we weren't selling shit, we were raising money for breast cancer research. The key piece that led me to quit was when I learned that 0.1% of all donations went towards the actual research. The remaining 99.9%, well, it was lining pockets and funding other centers to scam people. I now only donate directly to a source and even then only after vetting them. Got a job at a telemarketing place once. First day was told, if you are okay scamming people you can make a lot of money. After the intro class we were split into pairs and were told to listen into the experienced workers. Essentially how it worked was you call into a real company and the scammers would get phone numbers close to the reputable companies, so as you call in and are on hold, you think you are waiting to speak with them. A message would come on with some kind of scam deal, a free trip, $1 subscription for 12 months that costs you hundreds later on. Things like that. The very first call this confused senior, who thought she was waiting to speak with her bank. So she willingly gave out things like her credit card number etc. By the time she clued in and realized it was a scam and asked us not to process the information, the rep hung up on her and was actually laughing. Needless to say, I hopped on a bus home after that to go back to the want ads. I got hired to work in a loans office on the phone. Incoming calls. Basically they come across like a broker, telling people they qualified for certain loans and we would hook them up. We would then send a text with identical links to apply for loans. Pretty much every text had the same links. We charged them for a non-service. They weren't approved for anything. I hated the idea of working there. I thought I'd just get through the training and consider my options. I was hired by an agency, not the only time I was screwed over by an agency, who assured me that I'd easily make above the lower range of starting wages because I had call center experience. I'd also get to pick my shifts, etc. All lies. Shocker. A place that scams customers also scams employees. /s. They refused to even show me a contract until I had worked for 2 days. I lasted 3 days and probably wouldn't have stayed so long, but me husband's cousin worked there and thought the place was ace. I sent a scathing resignation email to the agent and the employer. I had a friend who worked at a scam call center and he didn't realize it until about 2 weeks after I told him that's what it was. When he first described the job to me, selling encyclopedia/educational books by cold calling in 2010, I told him it sounds like a scam. Not that he's scamming anyone, but the business owners were. He insisted the owners couldn't be scammers because they are average white Americans. This scam call center was in a major US city. My friend was an American who had never left the USA. I had to pick him up from this job once. It was at some random office park. The owner and his wife were at the front desk, dressed like they were on a tropical vacation. We are nowhere near anywhere tropical. Heavily tanned, just looked very out of place and kind of sleazy. I got to see the work area, which was a fold-up round table with a bunch of computers around it. The whole place looked like it could be packed up in a very short time and looked very sloppy. After he got in the car, I told him the place looks extremely shady, to please quit before it gets raided or something, because while I can't be sure, the owners are probably doing something illegal. He finally quit about a week later. I never figured out what happened to the business, but who the hell was buying books from a random phone call, even back in 2010? Oh, something I can answer. I was 16, and back in the day, circa 2003, Montreal was a huge haven for telemarketing scam operations, particularly those targeting the US. So being young and naive, I started phoning up places that had help wanted ads in the local newspaper. One called me back and told me to come in for an interview. It was a tiny little operation. For those of you from Montreal, right behind the famous Orange Jalep, with maybe about 10 people working there. The interview was quick, and I got hired on the spot. They explained to me that Visa and MasterCard had an issuing department that they contracted out to smaller centers, and we had to help process approved applications to get people their actual cards. I believed it. So I worked there for about 2 weeks, calling people and telling them that they got approved for a credit card application that they submitted a while back. It could have been up to 6 months ago. I still remember the script, and that we needed to get their information to update their file and rerun the credit check to issue their credit card. It turns out that they were selling them a credit repair kit, but that would only happen during the verification phone call. When the client agreed to everything, the supervisor would come on the line, dial out to a separate number to make a verification recording with the person on the line, and quickly rush through the information and blurb out the credit repair kit portion at the last second. Funny enough, the times the client objected or hesitated, they'd just hang up and tell me to go to the next person. 2 weeks passed by, and then I was due for my first paycheck on Monday. So I walk in all happy knowing that I must have made a super duper commission. Huh, that's weird. The doors are locked. They're not answering the phone either. What the? The office is empty and everything is gone. Then another one of my colleagues showed up inside. Then he mentioned to me, "You didn't think they were really issuing credit cards, did you?" So I headed back home all sad. I would spend the rest of that summer working at the grocery store. Obviously a throwaway because of reasons, but I worked for one company, which acted as two, called Nest and thereafter USDR, while pretending to be two companies. Can I do this? Or do I have to edit the names out? The companies don't exist anymore. Anyway, I found out a couple of months into the job that, although it wasn't exactly a scam per se, we were selling a service that people didn't need and could do for themselves. Later though, everything turned into a scam when the following happened. The owner's old business partner sued his balls off and managed to get all of his accounts frozen, including of course the ones where all of the client's money went and where all of our salaries came from. A couple of weeks later, we weren't even allowed into the building anymore. Almost 200 call center agents left on the street jobless. Oh, and during those couple of weeks we didn't get paid, but were all forced to come in and try to make new sales to effectively pay our own salaries while things picked back up. They never did. They still owe me about 2.5k USD. We went to the Ministry of Labor. We made quite a fuss and it even made the news without identifying the company itself. The legal representatives fled the country, and well, I guess we'll all just have to be pissed forever. It broke my heart every time I continued to receive email notifications which I can't turn off from clients who are still looking for responses and for help with their debt, and I can't even log into the system, which was paid for by the company, because it's not being funded, but somehow still receives incoming messages. Don't know how that works. So I guess what I mean is, if you worked with Nest and haven't been getting answers, that's why. So not only the clients got scammed, but the employees did too. I'm spending way too much time on this comment that probably only a couple of people will read, but I think it's my one chance to help at least one or two people realize that, although they didn't start out being scammed, they definitely were eventually, because of the piece of shit owner. I don't think mine was a scam, but it was incredibly sketchy. It was a call center where we cold called people to try to set them up with a college that offered majors they were interested in. Doesn't sound terrible, but we were only set up with certain colleges and these people needed to fit a certain criteria. One of them being having a home computer with access to the internet. Access to a library did not count. There were a surprisingly large amount of people that did not have that. That's not the sketchy part, that's just sad. But plenty of people yelled at us and wanted to be put on a do not call list. What was sketchy was that if you've applied for jobs online like Career Builder, Monster, etc., oftentimes after you fill out an application there will be a box asking for your phone number to be contacted that was not related to the application at all, and that was how we got people's phone numbers. It was also sketchy we were only set up with certain colleges, that's how we got kickbacks, but we clearly didn't have these people's interest in mind at all. They tried to implement something where you were only allowed a certain amount of bathroom breaks. As a female that doesn't. So I eventually stopped showing up. Fuck that place. So I work in a third-party call center for US Health and my god, if they aren't a scam then I don't know what is. I hate this job with a passion and fully plan on quitting once I can land another job. Last time I lost a job, I went 6 months and probably 200 applications later before landing this shithole of a gig. Don't particularly want to do that again. If anyone is wondering why I think one of the biggest health insurance companies is a scam, they make every applicant go through a 20 to 30 minute long health history questionnaire that's worded in a way to specifically confuse people. Depending on your past health history you can be flat out denied. Ever had any kind of DUI or DWI or any run-in with the law, even if it was 15 plus years ago, denied. Any kind of cancer, denied. Smoking/tobacco use, denied. Seen a chiropractor regularly even only for general wellness cause it feels good, denied. As far as I can tell they specifically look for healthy people so they can charge them hundreds of dollars every month knowing they won't have to pay out. There are a few people who have one of the above who managed to slip through, but that is because one of the verifiers screwed up and input the wrong information. Hell for the cancer one, all a verifier has to do is place onc at the end of the doctor's name and you will be denied, even if you said no to having cancer. So yeah, I hate this job with a passion and hope to leave soon. I worked in a call center during my senior year of high school along with a few other guys from our DECA class. We had to get a job and somehow this one attracted a few of us. Basically we would cold call and tell people you get a $100 Shell gift card and all you have to do is sign up for this service at $29.95 MO and you can cancel anytime. We were selling free gas. Come to find out the service we were selling was not something you could cancel right away and it required a 60-day notice. The gas card wouldn't be sent out for 90 to 120 days and it wouldn't be sent out at all if you cancelled before then. So basically you'd have to give 60 days cancellation notice after you received your card. 120 days equals 4 months. 29.95x4 equals $119.80 and then 60 days cancellation equals 2 more months. They made about $180 for nothing and spent $100 on a gas card once they got their money. Fuck them. I made $1,000 plus that week as a 17-year-old, so I was stoked. Then I found out what was happening and we all just spent the day saying what's up to people we were connected with on the phone and never went back. I've done 2. The year was 2014. I quit a job in early 2013. My dad died 3 months after. I never found a job after that, and anything related to his death drained the fuck out of my bank account, and it was either beggars can't be choosers and get any job, even if it goes way against your moral compass and you can't stand telemarketers. So you are your own worst enemy or wind up homeless. I eventually did for a bit, but that was after things got worse and is a whole nother story. First one, my then friend told me they were hiring. It was B2B selling bulk ink and toner subscriptions. They had 3 names for all 4 Canucks time zones. Among them was Green Tech Imaging. Can't remember the other 2. Edit, Aka Vivid Ink and Toner and Alstat Imaging, and I didn't realize how horrible it was until my home printer actually ran out of ink and I innocently asked if there was an employee discount. The supervisor then confessed that they fell apart in the printers and this was a ploy to trap them into a subscription service buying a crap load of toners a month, even if it's a company that hardly prints anything. I lasted 2 weeks before the manager actually got fired for not meeting quota and the guy taking his place was an absolute schmuck. He'd hang up on good leads on the first question, good or bad, so lots of people weren't getting their bonuses, but I was already thinking about quitting because of its ethics, and did the second day he got his promotion. Since my so-called friend was a heartless bastard, I stopped being friends with him for other reasons. He didn't see what the big deal was and still referred me to the next place. Second one, this was a company selling remodeling, but they gaslit the customers into thinking that they signed up at an expo or something. The opening line was something like, the last time we talked, you said you may have been interested in doing some things to your house, and basically hitting the do not call button was a big no-no. I wish I can find the pic I took, but it said NG no. Good or DNC, do not call, equals not your call. People caught hitting these buttons will be fired immediately. The FTC didn't do jack about it, and I think the bastards are still around, but changed their name and uses a different name. In 2014 they were known as Gold Remodeling, but when they make calls it used a name I can't remember. Edit, Aka Sal's Remodeling, and I'm sure just like the previous company, they probably exploited all sorts of loopholes to remain legal. Anyway, first day was a trial run, and you'd only get hired if you managed to pique someone's interest, which 99% of the people were really fucking pissed and know that they've been called for the millionth time. This was the only time I was thankful that my then girlfriend eats really spicy. Most of the time it pisses me off, since she adds stuff based on her tolerance. It was one of many reasons I broke up with her. She made noodles with way too much Thai pepper. She usually gets gelatinous, and even she was having trouble finishing it. But this morning I kept having to run to the bathroom. By my 5th bathroom run, relevant pic, they said that if I were to leave my desk again, they don't want me there. However, since I felt another wave coming, I put as much people in do not call as I can. While the boss was not watching, I'd say about 50 people, before I made yet another bathroom run and skedaddled right after I left a mess and didn't flush/r/put revenge style. I managed to find a not a scam from the start job a month later, even though that job was a nightmare of its own. Pre the 2008 financial crash I worked in a call center that sold PPI. I'm not sure if that was a thing outside the UK, but basically it was an insurance policy that nobody really needed, and we sold it to them. By scaremongering tactics, the company paid banks to advertise little stickers on credit cards that said, "Call now to activate your card." The customer, on receiving their new card, called the number believing to be calling their bank. We did not activate their card, but rather told them we did, whilst trying to get them to buy useless insurance policy that insured nothing. We'd tell all sorts of lies, and looking back it just preyed on naive and vulnerable people. I was 16 at the time, still at school, and it was a part-time job that paid slightly above minimum wage, so I didn't really question it. One day a customer I was speaking to challenged me and asked if I really knew what I was talking about, as it was clear she knew the insurance thing was all BS. I realized then it was a scam and walked out. After the financial crash, regulations were put in place and PPI was outed for being a huge financial scam. The company rebranded and turned into a call center to help people reclaim the PPI that was missold to them, obviously taking a cut for themselves. Thank you so much for watching the whole video. Please leave a like and subscribe.